for Councillor Columbus. Does anybody see him? Councillor Taylor, oh, there's Councillor Taylor's there. That's why. Formalities here first. I'm just going to pull up. Councillor Columbus. So Kevin, I think you just did something. You've got all of us being shown now. Is that what you meant to do?
I don't have control. It's Owen in the computer room there, or the.
Because before I had just your image, and that way I could see if you put your hand up about something. But now I have all the councillors. But maybe you need that for the streaming on TV. I'm not sure.
Just to confirm, we need that for the stream.
Okay, got it. Is it possible to have a second one with Owen or no?
I will try to get Kevin set up.
Or sorry, Owen with Kevin. My apologies. All right.
We just have to watch Kevin's screen time, because under the union contract, if he's on TV for a certain period of time, he gets a pay increase. So
That's news to me.
Give it time. And Kevin, just to confirm here, there was just the one change to the agenda before we get going?
Correct. The one withdrawal of the closed session.
Perfect. All right. Well, I believe if the cameras are rolling, then welcome everyone to the first fully virtual council meeting. This is exciting, so bear with us as we try to navigate this. I think I've got everybody pinned to the screen here. The only exception will be staff. You're down below. I see Councillor Columbus has joined us now. I will add him to the screen. Councillor Columbus, you're going to need to turn on your video so that we can see your hand go up. And so there we go. We've got you now. And then for the rest of staff, I will keep an eye out for your hands. If for some reason I haven't seen you for some period of time, don't hesitate. Kevin, that applies to yourself as well. Don't hesitate to you know, to unmute your mic and just let me know that you're there if I haven't seen you. So with that, we'll call this council meeting to order. I have some of our motions sheets here separately. Again, if everybody can make sure, I guess their phones are turned off at home. Approval changes to the agenda. We just have the removal of the one closed session item that relates to Mr. Murphy. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, if I could have a motion to approve. Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, seeing none then, we have no consent items today. The first presentation is going to be by Kim Earls, and I believe she is standing by. And Owen, you'll be able to place Kim on the screen then, so everybody will be able to see her at home?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Owen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. Our presentation, we will go through the short line rail presentation that we have prepared. Again, my name is Kim Earls, and I'm the Executive Director for SCORE EDC. And joining me today will be Cephas Panchow, who is the Economic Development Commissioner for the town of Tillsonburg. So the first slide, I will actually let the presentation go over to Mr. Panchow.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to present to Norfolk County Council today. This initiative, I guess, is led by SCORE, and of course I'm supporting SCORE in this initiative, is about the Cayuga Rail subdivision, which runs in from basically St. Thomas to Delhi, and I'll show a map of that shortly. But really what we want to do today was take a minute to go over some of the background information, including past short-line rail operations, the opportunity that we have in front of us in terms of rail usage and investment for economic development, some of the industrial sites along the Cayuga line, and there I must say I want to thank Norfolk County staff that have provided information to SCORE, including Christian Zavarelli, who's on the line as well, who's pulled a lot of this information together, and then also go over some of the potential models of local ownership that other counties and areas have done. A letter of intent, and actually Kim is going to speak, jump back in and speak to the letter of intent and some of the business case development, and then I'll speak to next steps at the end. So next slide, please. So certainly this region has a strong manufacturing and agricultural history. I think most of us are aware of that and are proud of that. Some of the strengths that we do have, as I mentioned, are the manufacturing base, proximity to larger population centers, and the U.S., of course, as well. We have significant and good road, airport, rail, port infrastructure, and population growth is coming our way. And I think most of us are seeing increasing population growth, which is good. Agricultural production and obviously the diversity, especially Norfolk County, I think is a leading champion in that regard, and something that I think that we all take some pride in when we see the products and the trucks going by as we drive on the highways, or as we used to drive on the highways before, of course, the pandemic. Climate as well, the warmer climate. Some of the weaknesses we have, of course, I've mentioned here, and certainly some of this is just aging infrastructure. And of course, this rail presentation today is about the aging rail infrastructure, and of course, connectivity, which this presentation doesn't address, but I know that Norfolk and Oxford and other counties and the whole SWIA, or Southwest region, I should say, not SWIA, but Western Ontario Western region, is looking at internet connectivity too. So, all right, next slide. Again, there's some opportunities here. I think there's at the federal level, the Advanced Manufacturing Supercluster, which of course many of our companies in this area are a part of or contributing to. There's a lot of new trade agreements as well that Ontario and Canada are well positioned to take advantage of, and that includes the new NAFTA 2.0 called USMCA, or the CETA agreement, which is with Europe, or even the TPP, which is with countries in Asia. The other opportunity we face, of course, in a number of areas is to increase infrastructure investments. And that's been a long-standing priority actually for SCORE and other groups in the region as well. Some of the threats, of course, I mean, the biggest one is the big elephant in the room, if you will, the pandemic recovery and how we're going to look coming out of that. The aging workforce, population growth is still below GTA levels, and loss of infrastructure at times. And at this particular point, of course, we're talking about rail. Next slide, please. So just to give an update, this is an update on the status of the CN's discontinuance process. So this is an official process that they actually have to go through to stop service on the line. This was actually published, and you may have missed it. It was published right around June of last year. There was a response deadline for other rail operators of August 24th. My understanding is that they received no substantial interest by that date, and that the discontinuance process then proceeded from there. We've been talking with them for quite some time now, and of course, trying to get a sense of really what the opportunities and some of the challenges are. Discontinuance process was on hold until early 2021, and our understanding is that notice to governments phase, which is most of us are aware there is a surplus process for pretty much any government or even a regulated industry. In this particular case, CN has to go through a notice to governments, which includes the federal government, the provincial government, and of course local government. So really, I think, and this is the point I usually say I wrote about this time in the presentation, really the opportunity here, or the goal, I think, is to have an answer when it does come down to local government. And certainly I think that we have a chance here, and this has been something that we've been talking about for a while, to be ready when the question comes to us, are you interested in these rail lands? So that's the goal of this, and there may be different opportunities. Obviously, it could be discontinued and turned back into farmland. If there is no interest, it could be maintained as a rail line, perhaps with a different business model, or it could be turned into a trail or even a rail corridor. This map here that you have in front of you shows the discontinuance section. So that flows from St. Thomas in the west, as I mentioned. That's kind of where that purple line comes down. That's St. Thomas. And then you can see kind of that point there right about New Serum where actually the mile marker starts, where the discontinuance would actually be in effect. And that line runs all the way east through Aylmer, through Tillsonburg, and right to the west side of Delhi. And you can see actually there's a bit of a red section of track there that's noted. That track has actually already been discontinued, but certainly my understanding is that corridor is still there with some rail assets still in place. So the question really is this line worth preserving? If not, what is it worth, I guess, in terms of the communities that are around it? Next slide, please. Some of the past users have been certainly a number are listed here, and I think there were a couple in Norfolk County as well, including FS Partners in the past. Basically, depending on which year you're looking at, there's roughly about 400 to 800 carloads running per year, which actually is not a bad number, but certainly more are needed for future rail sustainability. And we're estimating that at this point, just from some conversations with rail operators, it takes about $1 million to $1.5 million in total revenue to run this line per year. Next slide. So I've already really gone over this. This discontinuance is about 27 miles, and the majority of the lands traveled through our agriculture, but there are significant existing and future industrial lands along the line. And that's important because, one, the existing industries could support obviously higher rail volumes along there and support the feasibility of maintaining this as a rail line. But of course, if you do have vacant industrial lands, that's an opportunity to attract more industries to this area, especially ones that are reliant upon rail, and grow volumes significantly for this line. So I think that really when you look at this within the Ontario and even perhaps even the greater context of Canadian landscape, that they aren't making land anymore, as we know, and they definitely are not making rail land. In fact, we've seen quite a number of situations where rail users or companies that use rail are getting pushed out of bigger markets like the GTA or even Hamilton's because it's no longer suitable because of growth there. So that's really, we think that there is growth coming this way, which we know about. There's definitely industrial growth coming this way. So the question is, can we attract some of those to support the viability and perhaps even the growth of traffic along this line? So next slide. So this really is a high-level summary of industrial sites along the Cayuga line. The left column shows a total acreage of both existing built-up sites and also existing vacant sites, if you will. So you can see here just as a top-line number, including Delhi. So we did include Delhi just to get a sense of how much acreage there was in there. There's about 305 acres in Norfolk County, about 609 in Oxford County, largely in Tillsonburg, and about 171 in Elgin counties for a total of about 1,100 acres. And that really is quite an astounding number because with 1,100 acres, you can support a lot of industrial activity and presumably a lot of rail growth as well. So there's a breakdown there, of course, of how much of that land is vacant. And you can see in Norfolk, there's roughly just under 198.8 or 99 acres across 9 vacant sites. And then there's about 206 acres of occupied sites with existing businesses on them. So again, this line really, I mean, this really is kind of the interesting slide here because it shows that this line really does touch 3 of SCOR's major counties and obviously impacts a wide area. So next slide. There's a number of models that we've done research on, and really this is about local ownership. When there is a county or municipal ownership, I guess, the question is how does this line work? And obviously most counties don't run rail lines, it's outsourced. But so we've looked at the Guelph Junction Railway just to the east of us, of course, or northeast of us. And also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides. The information's there certainly for county council's information, but certainly this is part of the business model and the business plan that's being developed. Next slide, please. There's a line in Barrie as well called the Barrie Collingwood Railway. This would be the smallest of them. There's only 4 customers on there, and as you can see, about 220 carloads per year. So that's definitely on the smaller side of the operations. And the next slide is yeah, this is the Brampton-Orangeville as well. So this is about a 60-kilometer line, so definitely bigger than this one, which is about 43 kilometers. And again, it's run by a consortium, and there's a railway company that's contracted to them to operate that line. And then actually, we got some good numbers here, and thanks to Christian for that work. The companies that use the line employ about 422 employees, and obviously pretty significant payroll for that area. Next slide.
I should have advised you at the beginning. Normally our presentations are limited to 5 minutes, and I didn't tell you that, but that's okay. I mean, this is, I think it's an important issue facing Norfolk County, and certainly in honor of Dave Rusnak here, I'm happy to give you an extra couple minutes, but just maybe if we could kind of move through the last handful of slides, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, thank you. We weren't aware of that. We were anticipating, 15 minutes from their last one, but I'll let Kim jump in now with the letter of intent that has been signed with a short line service provider.
Sure. So we have received interest from a short line service provider, and we have signed a letter of intent. In that letter of intent, it outlines the responsibilities of each player within that letter. And so the short line rail service provider agrees to be a collaborator with SCOR in looking at market development along the Cayuga subline. Also to support any funding or work with any other private industries along that line. SCOR's obligation are to act as a lead collaborator within the short line service provider, responsible for maintaining relationships within the short line service provider and engaging with our member municipalities, provide administrative support and coordination, act as a liaison, and just to kind of keep everything going from the municipal and SCOR county side of things. And the town of Tillsonburg, again, will act as a co-collaborator, a liaison with members within the SCOR community and businesses, and to support development of the business case and feasibility study on the restart of operations. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Cephas.
Yeah, so thank you. So the market development study, which really is the key part of the business case, is of course just figuring out can we actually shake a little bit of fruit from those fruit trees, if you will, and find that low-hanging fruit and develop more rail volumes from existing companies along the line. That actually is currently underway, and SCOR will be leading a number of initiatives with respect to advocacy at conferences that are coming up. I think most of you are aware of those, so I'll just move on to the next slide. Certainly at this point, we're not looking for municipal funding from counties. We're just trying to raise awareness of this so there's no surprise. But certainly there could be a request in the future for support to help develop the full comprehensive business case, if you will. And we certainly could look at provincial funding programs like the Rural Economic Development Program, I think, which most of us would be familiar with. And in terms of the other future funding options that could be there to support capital investment, of course, there's or feasibility studies as community futures organizations across the 3 counties. And at the national level, there's a trade corridor fund that helps make those capital investments. Next slide. So where we are right now, certainly that business case development is ongoing. We're going to continue to engage with the economic development offices of the 3 counties affected and all 5 counties through SCORE's Resource Advisory Group. And we actually have a bi-monthly meeting with a number of that we actually keep the mayors and wardens from the various counties up to date, as well as the senior staff. So the next one's actually scheduled for February 4th. And so that one is what we're working toward as well, to have more information on the market development study. So again, continually engage with we want to engage with the impacted counties. We want to let them know in case they weren't aware of what was going on with this discontinuance process. Certainly, we are looking for support in principle. We've already had, I guess, unofficial support from attendance by the various mayors and CAOs and economic development staff. But we would, of course, like to keep that going and continue with that further business case development and perhaps even looking at regional funding applications in the future. So at that, I guess we are over time. Our apologies. We didn't realize that, but I don't know, Kim, if you have any last words you want to say. Okay. Thank you.
I'm good.
Sorry, that's my fault there. If I could get somebody to move the deputation as information. Councillor Taylor, and seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. And I just had made a comment there. I think maybe in the future what we'll do while our presentations are on is maybe I'll try to leave our cameras on. I can only see Councillor Rabbits. Any questions for the deputation? No questions? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This is the one and only rail line that goes directly into St. Thomas that now has that new elevated park. Is this correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Rabbits, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop, and through you. I'm just back on the slide when we're looking at industrial sites along the Cayuga rail line. And I mean, it stands out to me that the only asterisk is on the short line that's been discontinued in Delhi. And I wanted to afford our deputation a little opportunity just to expound on that a little bit. We have the line, extending through Middleton and Cortland. We don't have a lot of detail with regards to Oxford and Elgin. And I was just hoping for a little bit more information about that far westerly portion of our community that does not have the rail line discontinued. And it seems to be the last stop in the line is Delhi. And I just wanted maybe a little opportunity to expound on that information because I found that interesting as an outlier in the information provided.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cephas, did you want to take that?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. We certainly see, this line has run from Tillsonburg, as you know, into the east or west side, I guess, of Norfolk County. And so Cortland would be the largest community that's currently connected right now. As mentioned before, the red section line on that map is actually the route through Delhi, and that actually was discontinued previously. I think this council is aware of that. So So the main business would actually be in Cortland and I guess in Middleton, and certainly Cortland I think would be the main opportunities in terms of vacant industrial land and also some existing buildings that are on those lands in Cortland. If a rail operator came along and the business case was that the bridge going into Delhi could be refurbished and they wanted to secure more business there into Delhi, my understanding is that potentially could be still added on as an add-on to the line and actually bring this rail line further east into Norfolk County. But you are correct. This is the only rail line that I'm aware of that actually runs into Norfolk County at this time. I hope that answers your question. If not, please re-ask and maybe I can provide a little bit more clarity.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Did you indicate to us that you did have a provider that was ready to participate?
If I may, through the mayor, yes, we have a provider that is interested in taking that market development on, and we have signed a letter of intent. And further to Mr. Rabbit's question, if I may also, that line runs through, and some of you may know Cortland, the old Sylvite plant area, and then on past Titan trailers and sort of in that way. So there definitely is some opportunities for Norfolk County, particularly those that might affect the ag and manufacturing sector.
Thank you, Kim.
I have a couple questions in terms of the analysis here with the municipal contribution. You know, given this touches actually, despite the fact that we do have a significant number of acres of industrial land that you guys pointed out, the rail line actually only touches a very small portion of that. It's unfortunately that we lost that rail line into Delhi previously. So what kind of municipal contribution would we be looking at? Has that analysis been done?
If I may, Mayor, so we're in the process of doing that right now. In preliminary discussions, and CFIS, feel free to jump in, as a SCORE member, that would not cost the municipality anything at this point. We would undertake any sort of funding applications and certainly look for contributions from private interests at this time. Right now, we're just in the preliminary exploration phase of it. Does that answer your question?
Has there been further research, Kim, into, you know, Dave Rusnak, obviously, I know I put him in contact with you and he's made a number of presentations to council advocating for this, but you know, has there been any analysis in terms of, you know, reestablishing, you know, the rail line into Delhi? I mean, again, everything comes, it's a cost benefit analysis, and I think that's why, you know, many rail lines across North America actually have closed over the years, because they realize that those costs, you know, you'd have to be driving a lot of economic activity to make up for that differential there to continue to run it.
Yes, Mayor. So yes, we are in the process of updating some of that information right now. With the pandemic and other things happening globally, I would say there's a resurgence of interest and investments in those larger rails across sort of US and Canada right now, but we are in the process of that. And CFIS, I don't know if you want to speak more to that.
I think you've covered it quite well. We don't have, you know, the full information on that yet. Certainly what we look at is how much would the business case cost, and a typical business case could be $20,000 to $40,000. How much of that can we cover off in terms of what's within our existing budgets or contributions from the various members? That would be quite nominal, to be honest. The bigger, I think the bigger question is if this line is reinstated, how much does the partner, the letter of intent partner, shall we call them, bring to this? How much does the customers bring to this? If they really need rail, they obviously need to make a capital contribution as well. And then, of course, how much does local government or municipal government across this region look at as well? And that question has not been answered yet, but certainly well underway.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, with respect to the market development study, will that study include going right into Delhi and to the extreme east end where the fertilizer plant is? Or is it just going into the Cortland area? Because one of the big issues that we've always encountered with this particular project is the railway trestle. It's just on the west side of the town of Delhi, which I understand there was an estimate of $500,000 just to refurbish that for rail cars. So just what is the dynamics of moving as far as you can to the east.
I think at this point, if I could jump in through the mayor, certainly to answer that question from the councillor, is that we're not leaving many stones unturned in this. We're trying to uncover every stone that we can. So, I mean, if there's an opportunity in Delhi that makes the 500,000 is actually not a huge number, to be honest, in terms of the scale of things, if you have a number of rail cars to amortize that over on an annual basis. So, and that may not be the number 500,000, maybe more, maybe $1 million. But I think that the point is that we're not leaving any stone unturned.
Okay, anything further from council members on this matter? All right, thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you.
You know, I guess one of the things that I could point out is, you know, when we look at the council strategic fund, Councillor Michelli could probably provide comments on this, but you know, they are looking at SWIFT currently for their opportunities. I mean, the information has gone to council, has been sent out by SWIFT. But, you know, that requires in the next round potentially a municipal contribution at some of the other options that they're looking at, and a sizable municipal contribution. So when you look at, you know, wanting to bring more internet to rural areas and you need to provide, you know, supplementary funding to make that business case viable, or you want to look at some option like this in the future, you know, these are reasons that you have money set aside. Otherwise, you know, Norfolk County loses out on these opportunities because we don't have the reserve funds to be able to address them. So while we might not see strategic initiatives at this point in time, I think there are certainly ways that that fund can be used down the road for this council and for future councils. The next item was closed session on the agenda. I think what we'll do is we'll come back to that last, just so we can keep the public engaged here. We don't have any deputations on the agenda. Moving into correspondence, we have correspondence regarding PW 2101. And if I could have a mover and seconder to receive that as information, unless there's further comments. Councillor Martin, did you wish to make further comments? A seconder? Councillor Michelli? Any discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. The Police Services Board, they're regarding the transfer of false alarm bylaw. That's has been recommended by staff to receive as information. If I could have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Columbus. Any discussions on the matter? Councillor Rabbits, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. My question to staff is, if we're receiving this as information, are we to expect a accompanying staff memo or report back to council, and when could we expect that?
Through the mayor to council, that's correct. You can receive this information. We just need to provide a little bit of context around that. We're hoping for one cycle.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Michelli, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I think to staff, in the preamble of this item, there is I believe it's the third paragraph of the preamble. There's a term that refers to multiple conversions were held, and I'm just asking, are those are not conversions as in changes, are they? Or is that word meant to say multiple conversations? It's the last word in the fourth line of the third paragraph. Because if that word is meant to say conversions, I'm a bit puzzled as to what the conversions were.
I'm sure it's conversations.
I would guess at that, but I would just, we will confirm.
Okay.
That would be my assumption based upon.
My guess is that it's conversations as well, but I didn't want to assume that. Thank you.
Perhaps somebody could check with Councillor, or, I was going to say Councillor Trevally, but Chair Trevally. Okay, so again, if I had a mover and a seconder, we'll re-receive that as information now that Councillor Michelli had his correction put in there. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next item of communication is the letter from Ms. Earls regarding SCORE and the 2021 budget. If I could have a mover and seconder to receive his information. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor? That's carried. Next item is from Evelyn Ishbaum, manager from Citizen and Legislative Services Clerk, regarding the Norfolk County Six Nations Water Supply Project update. If we could receive that as information and refer it back to staff. Unless, is there any further discussion on that item? Okay, a mover and a seconder. Councillor Michelli, and seconded by Councillor Roberts. All those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Geisens, regarding his letter of resignation. So I believe at this stage we will need a motion to declare Councillor Geisens' seat as vacant in Ward 2. If I could have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Columbus, and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now, Kevin, is there anything else that you'd like done at this point in time, or how maybe you want to touch on the sort of the next steps for council?
Sure, yeah. So for this week or this council meeting, there is just to receive the information, receive the resignation letter as information, and for it to be declared vacant, and then further debate will be happening beginning next week at special council.
Okay. So I guess I don't know if we want to have our Councillor Van Passen. Go ahead.
Just on that subject, I know some of the information that we're getting from the clerk that potentially there could be, if we decide to have an election, it could be between May and July. And I just wonder, because that is largely a rural ward, and farmers do get busy between May and July, and what is the tightest timeline that we could develop to have an election? And maybe they could inform us of that at the next time or the next meeting. Because I think that we'd like to have an election early as possible so that it doesn't interfere with the spring planting season.
I think that's a great point, Councillor Van Passen. The other, one of the concerns that I had received as well is in the nature of COVID. And Kevin, perhaps you can, I'm not sure whether you would have this background information or not, but certainly Andy would. My understanding is the requirement for the 25 signatures for the nomination was something that was just brought in under the last election. And one of the concerns I received was that, you know, given the lockdown and people aren't supposed to be traveling, is receiving the signature. So maybe there's an electronic way of doing it, or perhaps we waive that requirement in the face of the lockdown here. So that's another thing that we could hear more about at the special council meeting. Now I know we've, you know, it's been reported in the media and so on, but I'm certainly going to miss Roger myself around the table, and he's given a great number of years of service to Norfolk County, and for that we all owe him a great deal of thanks, and I hope he certainly enjoys his retirement from Norfolk County Council. And I guess maybe just Councillor Columbus, especially yourself, since you've worked with Roger so many years, if you wanted to say a few words.
Well, for sure, I will certainly miss him. I've worked with him since day one with Norfolk County Council. I actually worked with him also for 5 years with the AgriCorps Ontario Government Crop Insurance Program. And he's always been there certainly to represent the residents of Ward 2 in particular and all of Norfolk County. And I too wish him all the best in his retirement. He deserves it after all these years serving the public. Thank you.
100%. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we've had the motion to pass the declare the Ward 2 seat as vacant. We'll get more information back next week. And finally, we've got the item of communication from the Ministry of Transportation regarding off-road vehicles on municipal roads. Councillor Van Passen, I see you wanted to have some discussion on the matter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The province recently sort of changed the rules on where off-road vehicles are allowed or not allowed. And I would ask that the clerk bring us back a report to see whether there are options for Norfolk County. Again, we have some of the, well, just about the only available public areas where the use of those type of machines is allowed, but you can't get from one area to another because you're not allowed to drive down the roads. That type of equipment is very useful with the agricultural community, going from farm to farm for farm purpose. So I would just ask that the clerk bring back a report sometime in the near future with some options that are available to this council to amend the rules to fit with the new allowable uses that the province has put forward.
I certainly endorse that. I think it would also help our Friday the 13th dilemma that we had last year as well, or 2 years ago, I guess, rather. Are there...
We would be able to use our off-road vehicle then, right?
That's exactly. I certainly endorse that recommendation. Is there a seconder for a staff report on that matter? Councillor Taylor, any further discussion? Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. Representing a rural municipality, and even in our urban centers, if you've got a good arm, you could probably throw a baseball and hit a farmer's field or a septic tank. We're all interconnected here, and even in terms of employment, this is a legitimate way to get from point A to point B. And I can speak from experience having people pick a number of different ways to get out to our factory out on Park Road. Working for Taiyu Tetsu, and with all the different contraptions people have that are on the road that pose a hazard, whether they be a motorized scooter, an electric bike, these hoverboards, and I've seen all sorts of different ways from getting from point A to point B, and whether it be a snow machine or the different types of all-terrain vehicles that were described within the information package. I think they're all ultimately with a responsible operator, a legitimate way from getting from point A to point B. I really hope that we craft a good bylaw for our community that allows people and many of lesser means to purchase something that is far less expensive than a truck or a car, a sedan. And we do need to think about those that may be suffering from disabilities as well, that use these as an assistive device to get from point A to point B. I'm specifically thinking about those side-by-sides. And there may be an opportunity for our community to generate a little bit of tourism. I'm thinking about golf carts and other communities that many snowbirds travel outside of a municipality to go to. They come back to their municipality and they find that they're restricted in using some of the machines that they use to boot around in on vacation. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll be looking forward to a future staff report.
Great. So that was moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Moving on, approval of minutes. There's first before you are the council minutes from December 15th, 2020. Are there any errors or omissions? Councillor Taylor, I think your hand was up from before. Nothing new to add? Okay. Those will be declared then adopted and signed by myself and the clerk. Special council minutes of January 5th, 2021. Any errors or omissions on those? Okay, seeing none, those two will be signed by the clerk and myself and declared adopted. Reports of committee, council and committee minutes, January 12th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve those council minutes, council and committee minutes? Councillor Columbus?
Yes, and I do have a clarification to make on that.
Okay.
It's with respect to the deputation number 2, and it's at the top of page 3 of 10 of those council and committee minutes. It lists the purchase for land in Ward 6. It's actually Ward 3, I should say. Okay, and then if you move on to number 3, it should be Ward 3 as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Columbus, for pointing that out. I believe that was addressed last week. Somehow it didn't make it in there. So Kevin, have you noted those corrections?
Yes, I have.
Perfect, thank you, sir. Any further errors or omissions? Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
We should probably change the date till 2021, otherwise people might think we're lax in our duties.
Okay, perfect. Anything further? All right, in that case then, mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? That's carried. Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes from December 21st, 2020. A mover and a seconder to receive those as information. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion on those? All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, the Energy Conservation Committee minutes, December 11th, 2020. Mover and a seconder. Receive as information. Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. Any discussion there? Okay, all those in favor. Oh, Councillor Van Passen, did you wish to say something?
No, I'm trying to make that go away.
Okay, sounds good. All those in favor? That's carried. No staff reports this evening. We have a number of bylaws. Let me just pull the motion here. Motion reads that bylaw 2021-04 to bylaw 2021-09 inclusive be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Columbus. Any discussion on those? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Motions, no motions this evening, no notices of motion of which I'm aware unless there's any. All right, general announcements. Any general announcements? Guess the only thing I would have to say, this actually went all right, actually doing this all virtually. I've got you all up there and it's, I think it's pretty manageable. I guess at that point then, I will need a motion to move into closed session. Let me just read this out. The motion reads as follows, that council enter closed session. It will be at 3:48 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Staff report CAO 21-01 regarding committee appointments. Staff report CAO 21-02 regarding committee appointments. Staff report PD 21-01 regarding committee appointments. Staff report PD 21-02 regarding committee appointments. A staff report CS 20-03 regarding the proposed property sale in Ward 6. It was deferred from last week. Staff report CAO 21-05 that has been removed now, and CAO memo regarding the water situation and potential legal risk. Pursuant to sections 239, 2B, C, and F, one of the Municipal Act 2001, RSO 2001-25, as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor to move into closed, and that's carried. Okay, so with that, we will be logging off, and for the public, just with the exception of coming back online to do our confirming bylaw, as well as to make the announcements regarding the committee appointments, as well as any other decisions that could be made in closed session. That will complete the agenda for the evening. So I anticipate we should be back on, I would say 40 minutes at the most. But again, really, it's just listing the committee appointments that we'll provide, obviously, to the local reporter. So you'll be able to read about them that way if you don't wish to stay online. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
have a motion to go back into open.
If I could have a mover and a seconder, Counselor Rabbit, seconded by Counselor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. So the first motion, Kevin, if you'd like to read, that's the appointment to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee.
Okay, so that staff report CAO 2101 regarding let me mute my microphone here. Okay, so that staff report CAO 2101 regarding appointments to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee be received as information, and that Jamie Smith and Donna Caper be appointed to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee for a term commencing immediately to November 30, 2022.
Okay, a mover and a seconder. Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next committee appointments are for the library board.
That staff report CAO 2102 respecting closed session library board appointment be received as information, and that council appoint Jennifer Schooley and Lisa Marr to serve on the Norfolk Public Library Board for a term to expire on November 15th, 2022, or until new appointments are made.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder. Counselor Michele, seconded by Counselor Huffman. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next are the TDAB committee appointments.
That staff report PD 2101 appointments to Tourism and Economic Development Advisory be received as information, and that Norfolk County Council approve the appointment of Antoinette Wells, Chantel Zorad, Helen La Rochelle, Michael Bollert, Jerry O'Connell, and Sarah Van Weinsberg to the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board for terms expiring December 31, 2022, and further that Norfolk County Council approved the appointment of Alexis Fernandez Oliveira to the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board in the position of junior member for a term expiring December 31st, 2022.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder. Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Columbus. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have the Agricultural Advisory Board committee appointments.
That report PD 2102 Agricultural Advisory Board appointments be received as information, and that Norfolk County Council approve the appointment of Dustin, Zamancic, Jason Ryder, Paul Prosick, Mark Kenneth Wall, and Sandy DeHoog to the Agricultural Advisory Board for 4-year terms expiring on December 31, 2024.
Okay, a mover and a seconder. Counselor Rabbits and seconded by Counselor Martin. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have staff report CS 21-03. This is in regards to a proposed property sale in Ward 6. And we'll just receive that as information. Mover and a seconder. Counselor Michele, seconded by Counselor Rabbits. All those in favor? That is carried. Counselor Van Passen, are you opposed, or I just didn't see your hand?
The screen has been freezing again, so.
Okay.
But I support the motion.
Excellent. Next is the CAO memo in regards to the water situation. And Kevin or Shelley, if you could read out the motion for that item.
Thank you. I think, Kevin, you'll have to be received as information, but also if we could add and that council permit a single source supply as outlined in Norfolk County Purchasing Policy ECS 02 Section 4.84 for legal services identified in the confidential memo dated January 10th, 2021.
Super. A mover and a seconder. Counselor Rabbit, seconded by Counselor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, just 1 second. I will pull up the confirming bylaw. number. I just need a mover and seconder. It'll be bylaw 2021-10, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this council meeting held on the 19th day of January 2021, be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. Mover and seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? And that's carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Michelle, and seconded by, let's not all jump at this, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Council is adjourned. Good job, everyone, on our first virtual meeting. So that's excellent. We'll see you next Tuesday. I believe, what is the start time, Kevin, for the special council meeting? Do we have that down in the morning or still at 3 o'clock?
I'll confirm, but I believe it is 3 o'clock.
Okay, so we will see everybody next Tuesday at 3 p.m. for the special council meeting. Thanks
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.